Hey class, in this video we're going to jump into our chapter 2 topic, reduction and diversion. I hope you enjoyed the podcast that I shared in my last video, and I think it gave some really good real world examples of how focusing at the top of the waste hierarchy at that prevention step is really, really important. In this chunk, we're going to look a little bit more at some product and process design that can help us out with reducing waste, or if we can't do that, with diverting it. So in this half, we're going to focus on what I group as pre-consumer strategies. So what are some things we can do when we're designing systems and processes before they get to the consumer that will help us target some waste reduction and diversion. And then later on, we'll look at post-consumer strategies. So once the consumer already has the product, what are some things that can happen from there? So one of the first things I think to touch on is just the impossibility of having low waste production in a system where we're encouraged to consume things and an economy that's built on us consuming things all the time. They're really at cross purposes, and it's really, you can't get very far in waste reduction if you're always buying things. So there's a video that I've linked here called The Story of Stuff. It's from 2007. I watched it in high school, so it's pretty old, but it does a really good job of looking at that linear economy and all the triple bottom line consequences of this dysfunctional system. So I'll give you that link to watch through. One of the concepts it introduced that's really interesting is the concept of obsolescence. So when an item is obsolete, and that's when we actually want to get rid of it, that's the moment when it becomes waste. And obsolescence can be planned, so people can make products that break, so we'll buy more just so they can sell more, which creates waste, or it can be perceived. So we might just think that we don't need it anymore, even though it's still good. So clothing is a really good example of that perceived obsolescence. It might be perfectly fine, but we don't want to wear it anymore because it's not fashionable. And that's where we get the term fast fashion. We can apply to all sorts of products these days. But in a world where we have, fast fashion and consumerism, we're built on buying things all the time. It's really hard to get very far in waste diversion in that sort of context. So this is a really important kind of social, economic background to everything that I think is important to look at. And this video does a great job doing that. So I'll leave that there and encourage you to go through that. The second concept I want to look at from the pre-consumer side is a concept called design for the environment. So when you're making a product, there's a set of considerations you can use called design for the environment that we use to make sure that when that item's done being used, it will have less impact on the environment. So I've listed here some of the general things. One is that product or process avoids or doesn't generate waste in the first place. It uses less materials or is more lightweight. It's durable or lasts longer, so you don't have to throw it out as many times and get new ones. It's easy to reuse. It's easy to disassemble or repair. It uses fewer or less toxic materials. Or lastly, it's easy or inexpensive to recycle, and you actually get desirable materials out of this. So there's a lot here. There's a lot of ways these kind of rules could be applied. So in the next slides, I have a few kind of real world examples that go into some of these design for the environment principles and talk a little bit more about how they're applied. So I encourage you to, as we go through the examples, come back to this list and see where they're using different principles from this list. So the first one that I really like is these toaster conceptual designs, and they all look at different design for the environment strategies. And I put the link there, and I encourage you to go through the site and click through them. So there's kind of a modular one in the middle. There's an easy to disassemble and repair one on this side. And then on the other side, there's this one that's made really, really durable. So these are all kind of different approaches. And the website's got some really cool photos and explanation of why they built them the way they did. So I encourage you to head over there and click through those designs. I thought it was really interesting. And then this same company has another kind of circular economy design for the environment concept called circular economy light bulbs. And what this whole idea is about is, instead of approaching something as a product, approaching it as a service. So if you're in the business of selling light bulbs, you actually might want to build in some obsolescence. So your light bulb will only burn for like a year, and then you have to buy another light bulb. If you make a light bulb that lasts forever, you only sell one. You won't make very much money. So treating it as a service kind of reorients the incentives and makes the company want to actually spend less resources on providing that service rather than just trying to cycle through more products over time. So this video goes through their concept for the how they would do that. And it's not just the service model. There's some other technologies built in about decreasing the life cycle impacts of that product. So it's kind of, we don't want to just think about the physical product. There's also the service delivery design. And Bruce Taylor from the podcast from right before this, their company actually uses a similar kind of service delivery design. So instead of charging for a design, like an engineering company might come and charge to build a landfill or an anaerobic digester, they will charge actually out of the savings that they provide the company. So it creates a different incentive, where a traditional engineering model, you'd be incentivized to market a really kind of heavy engineering approach, install lots of new machinery. With EnviroSteer's approach, they're actually targeting the savings. So they're more likely to put in a prevention approach than an infrastructure heavy kind of waste destruction approach. So you can see how this concept of designing for the environment can come through in both products and processes and services. Another really obvious thing that's not designed for the environment is single-use products. And these are really easy to see everywhere. They're really infuriating. This is a really great video from University of California and Vox that talks about some single-use products and how we can avoid them, both by redesigning the products and redesigning some of the systems we use to access those products. So I'll leave this link here for you to go through that video. And then the same people have another really great video on food waste. And again, there's kind of product and process approaches to the design for the environment problem here. Food waste, we're going to kind of come back to when we go into organic waste treatment. But once we get there, it's already too far. We missed the boat. We should have been doing it now. So this video does a really good job of going through some of the ways we produce food waste and ways we can reduce the food waste we do produce.